Princess treatment, soft life, and I want my man to do this, I want my man to do that. And why are you having sex with a man for free? Today, we are going to unpack modern heterosexual relationships and the pipeline to sex work, even though some of them will swear that they are better than sex workers. Let's get right into this.
Warning, listening to us
might radicalize you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Unholy Feminists. As always, it's me, Gail, and my gorgeous, amazing host, Kat. Hi, Kat.
Hi, Gail. Hi,
I
everyone.
know the world is being shitty to you, so I want to ask you, how are you doing? Because that will probably get both of us into another rant session.
No, it's okay. I'm doing. But yeah, the reason why we haven't been around for a couple of weeks was because we were experiencing some issues. I mean, personally, me, for the past week, I've been dealing with my babies getting sick. My dog was diagnosed with diabetes, so he's been in and out of the vet. So yeah, we haven't exactly had time to schedule our filming, but we are back.
Yeah, we are back finally.
Mm-hmm.
And we are filming 2 episodes today. So if you see me in the same top in the next episode, it's fine. I mean, it's not how we look that matters anyway, is what we are saying.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just focus on that. So yeah, today we are talking about something that's like really interesting to me. So I've been able to build a community of feminists who are decentering, deconstructing, and it's been amazing. I've even been able to convert some rad femmes.
Ooh.
Sorry, I always think of rad femmes as like, those who are against sex
Mm-hmm.
positivity and who exclude trans. So let's just say I've been able to convert some people to be more sex positive, to be more intersectional by including trans people, not necessarily in their activism, but by not fueling the hate against trans people with some of the rhetoric they have. So it's I'm very glad I found this group of people. I'm also learning a lot from them. So one of them sent a message in one of our in for a conversation
Mm-hmm.
that we need to decenter money. So that was the conversation we were talking about,
Mm-hmm.
decentering money as like someone who is on a journey. And I remember the conversation veering into like relationship dynamics, how a lot of women just automatically expect that, the man should be the provider,
Mm-hmm.
the man should do this, the man should do that. Even if they are working, they still want to solely be financially dependent on the man they are either in a relationship with or even married to. So that was a conversation we were having. And it's I feel like it's something I've always thought of, how a lot of people navigate relationships being synonymous to sex workers
Yeah.
who what they do is very transactional. However, these people in romantic relationships still think that they are better people than sex workers, and some of them are even very much against sex work.
Mm-hmm.
So that is why I want us to have this conversation today. So the first question for you, Kat, is what do you think the script for modern relationship is? Like, how has it been marketed to us? How, especially when it comes to heterosexual relationships, because I've seen some kind of different dynamic with other couples, like non-binary couples, like lesbian couples and gay couples. Granted, some of them also feed into heteronormative
Mm-hmm.
ways of being in a relationship. But what is the script in your experience? What's the script?
Um, I mean, it depends on what kind of relationship, because every relationship has a different dynamic, right? One of the
Mm-hmm.
things that makes dating difficult at this point is because of the increasingly bigger gap, bigger divide between men and women and what they want in a relationship. I mean, you can look at recent studies. For example, there was one study asking men and women, conservative men and progressive men versus progressive and conservative women, to rate what they consider to be a priority, or like rate a list of priorities for them in terms of a relationship. And you can see that for conservative men, they tend to favor things like having children or getting married, all that kind of stuff. Whereas compared to progressive women, it's at the very bottom of the list. So we can see the discrepancy between the two genders, especially between conservative men and between progressive women. But also we can see trends where you can see men are becoming more conservative, whereas women are becoming more progressive. So this divide, and couple that with people like Nick Fuentes on the internet and Andrew Tate, red pill content that is converting men, that is turning men into insufferable losers, women have a harder time finding a relationship by navigating this cesspool of dating. And men buy into this ideology where they think that women only want men to be the providers, and if they don't look great, if they don't have like this chiseled jawbone, if they don't make, I don't know, 7-figure, then no woman would want to be with them, to the point where they even use a hammer to smash their face, because they think that if they don't do that, women don't want to be in a relationship with them. So, and when they do that, they become bitter, they become resentful of women. So the relationship in the whole, it's very difficult for men and women to interact when men are so resentful of women, without even knowing that women actually don't want these things. And then there's also women who buy into red pill content like Pearl as well. So I don't know, this is a roundabout way of me saying that every relationships now is hard. Modern relationships are hard at this point in age because of so many things, because of misogyny, because of patriarchy, but also because of capitalism, because we can see the rising cost of living and the shit job market and everything else is making everyone struggle to pay their rent, to buy food, to put food on the table. So it creates a really difficult dynamic right now.
Yeah, yeah, I perfectly agree with you. I think I want to paraphrase what I'm going to say with, this is not me shaming people, especially women, for wanting comfort, for wanting to be supported by their men or anything. But it's sometimes is the idea behind the things you want, is the entitlement behind the things you expect from a man you are having sexual relationship with or romantically involved with. Because on my end, I think the social media scripts especially is very, it's problematic to say, because social media expectations of relationships are very like sometimes very performative, with the chivalry and the romance, and women seeming or being expected to offer softness, offer femininity, offer sex as an action in exchange for, princess treatments, in exchange for using your man's credit card whenever you want to, in exchange for your man paying for all your beauty bills, in exchange for your man being the one responsible for your rent. And this dynamic is, I don't it's maybe it's probably always been there, honestly, but I think now it's very popularized, and a lot of people are actually creating content on this. I've literally come across feminist accounts that are framing this type of relationship as reparations. So these people say they are not sex workers. However, they are going to find ways, and they actually teach other women ways to take money from men. And they call it reparations. And it comes with, I don't know. I feel like just the idea behind it is so icky, because I've come across some of these accounts that's also in the same vein are bashing sex workers, and are very much on the side of, we need to abolish sex work, we need to do this, we need to do that, but they do not see what they are preaching or what they are teaching people as sex work. I'm sure you came across the sprinkle kind
Yeah.
of content where, like, they teach you how to, yeah, they're literally teaching women how to get money from men. And again, I'm not saying you should not want comfort or support, but haven't we seen how problematic it is to depend on a man financially in any way or form? Honestly, even with my male friends, for me, even with my male friends, if I have to ask them for any form of support, I have to think about it so much before I do. Because I don't know, I feel like the day a man stands anywhere to say that he contributes in any way to my way of life financially, I'll probably find him and unalive him, because I've worked too hard. I've done so much. I've sweated so much to have the life I have right now and to be building the life I want, to let a man take credit for how far I've worked and how far I've come. So yeah, I do think the social media script is very, it makes things weird, right?
Yeah, I agree. I have seen that. And I have also seen, I would say that this correlates with the rise of tradwife popularity and tradwife content. And I saw a video by Perfect Union that dissected all of this, and I completely agreed. So basically, in the 2000s, 2010s, people from my generation, millennials, we were really sold this idea of girl boss feminism, of breaking the glass ceiling, that if you work hard, if you girl boss hard, then you won't have to struggle financially, then you will get this job that you want, you will get all this money, you will win capitalism in a way. So that's what people in my generation, what women in my generation were taught. But then we realized that, hi Abby, you're blocking the camera. Anyway, but then as we grow up, we realize that this is not exactly how it works, because we can see that no matter how much we go boss, we cannot get out of capitalism. And this is what Gen Z women saw, right? Gen Z women grew up, and then they saw millennials who were trying so hard, who were working so hard to earn a living or whatever, and yet we are still struggling to pay our bills. So Gen Z women saw this and they're like, you know what? I'm not gonna buy into girl boss feminism. I'm just gonna go do the other thing, to go in the complete opposite direction, which is trad wife, right? Which is basically to rely on a man. So the pendulum swung right. So that's how it happened, because again, ultimately it's capitalism. So capitalism showed
Yeah.
Gen Z women that, you know what, no matter how much you go boss, you're not gonna get what you want, so might as well just rely on a man to do it, which is not the point. It's not the point. The point is that we dismantle capitalism. The point is not that we align ourselves with men, you know. So I do see that, I do see a reason for that. However, so from my own personal experience, the reason why I do not ever want to rely on a man to support me financially, when I grew up, my dad was a breadwinner. My mom, she stayed at home. She was a stay-at-home mom. She never had a job. So completely we were reliant on my dad. And my dad was able to use finance, to use money as a way to wield control over us. I still remember when I was arguing with him multiple times, because I was a very stubborn child. So I would argue with him and he would say things like, if you live under my roof, if you spend my money, you have to listen to me, you have to do what I tell you. And those
Yeah.
words have been ingrained in my mind, basically teaching me that if a man is able to hold financial control over you, he will make you do what he wants you to do. And I do not ever want to be in that position ever again, which is why I had my first job when I was 16, because I wanted to get away from my dad's grip as soon as possible. I hadn't even finished high school before I got my first job, because I wanted to get out of it so badly. And I moved out at the age of 17 because I had a fight with my dad, and I said, you know what? I don't want to live under your roof anymore. I want to do what I want to do. So ever since then, I understand the power of money, and I understand that the person who controls the money controls the power. And I do not want it to be the other person. Which is also why in my personal relationship, I wouldn't say I'm the breadwinner, but I would say that I make more money than my partner. And I feel a sense of, I don't want to say control, but I also feel a sense of empowerment in a way, because I know that he could never say that, oh, I financially support you on this and that, because I know that one, even if something happens to the relationship and we break up, I would not feel like, oh, how am I going to pay the rent now, or how am I going to buy my groceries now, or how am I going to sustain my lifestyle, because he doesn't, you know what I mean, like I am able to sustain that because it's me.
Yeah.
And two,
Yeah.
it feels like I have a little bit more control, because it's like, okay, I can do this. I will take you out. Or for example, like it feels like I'm the established, I don't want to say it in a way that's like, oh, you're the controlling one in the relationship. But you know what I mean,
Sure.
right?
Yeah. But I get,
Yeah.
yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I do. I perfectly get you. I think the other side of this conversation is I've seen times where people have said that people who are against these forms of relationships where women are dependent on men are classed feminists because you have a means to make your money. That's why you can make these decisions. So some of them say that it's not a nuanced conversation. For example, if I'm saying that modern romantic relationships are transactional, even though people don't want to see it that way and they are synonymous to sex work. People don't want to see it that way because they'll probably put me in like a class feminist because I'm able to like pay for everything I want on my own without depending on someone. Because a lot of times I feel like people also enter into relationships because for emotional for economic stability. Some people enter into relationships because yeah, they probably do not have housing, so they think that being in a relationship, if two people come together, it probably might be easier. So then automatically they are dependent on the man because now they are living in their house. Because if they're not living in the man's house, they probably don't have anywhere to live. So I've also seen that side of the conversation. What do you think? Are we having this conversation because we are class feminists?
So I do want to also acknowledge that when we talk about it like that, sometimes, okay, so I want to emphasize that just because a woman decides to stay at home and takes care of the children, it does not mean that she is not making money. Because if we say it like that, then we are dismissing her invisible labor, her emotional labor, right? We are saying that household
Mm-hmm.
work is useless. We are buying into the whole idea that unpaid labor is useless, but unpaid labor is labor. And the problem is that she, or the person, the woman, is not being paid for it. That's the problem. It's not that the problem is that she stays at home, because it's the problem is that she's not being paid for it. However, with that being said, yes, staying at home, taking care of the children, maintaining a household is a lot of work. It's probably more work than a 9 to 5, because your work never ends. You never clock out. You're constantly thinking about your work. However, we also have to acknowledge a reality where women, here's the fact: women who financially depend on men, they are at a disadvantage. If he can feed
Yeah.
you, he can starve you. That's a fact, right? I mean, as much as I wish that we
Mm-hmm.
weren't living in that kind of in that kind of world, we do live in that kind of world. And also, we have to acknowledge the fact that 1 in 3 women experience domestic violence. And what happens when you don't have a job? What happens when you do not have the financial means to leave the relationship? If you're in an abusive relationship, you can't leave, then you can't go anywhere. You are stuck in that abusive relationship, which goes back to how having financial freedom is very important, because it's not just about safety, it's not just about comfort, but it's also about leaving yourself a way out if your partner does not love you anymore, if your partner does not want you anymore,
Yeah.
because you don't want to rely on a man's mercy in order to survive, right? You don't want to rely on a man's love for you to survive because that is so fickle. What if that man decides to not be merciful to you anymore tomorrow? How are you going to live? So I would say that if here's an advice that I've heard women give, and it's not the most practical thing, but if you find yourself in a position where you are at a financial disadvantage and you are unable to earn money for whatever reason, and you have to rely on your husband giving you allowance, try to find a way to store some of the money. Try to find a way to get some of the money into a personal bank account that he doesn't know, or maybe into hide it somewhere. Or you can also exchange the money to gift cards, right? If you are only allowed to go into stores, buy gift cards, because you can convert those gift cards into money and just leave them, store them somewhere. That also watch the expiration days, but store them somewhere, because you never know when a man decides to change his mind. And when that man decides to change his mind, you should always have money to leave him.
Yeah, yeah. I think this reminds me of a stuff like essay I wrote, and I've forgotten the title. But and that's why I feel like when we are talking, then I remember that I wrote an essay on this because I remember also speaking about this. It was sort of like a different thing, and then money, of course, financial stability came through, and I mentioned that for a lot of these people preaching that you should be dependent on a man, a lot of times based on and due to the social media scripts, a lot of these women, when they take the money from the men, they are not even investing in actual assets. So there's actually a disparity between, assets owned by men and assets owned by women, because men are using their money to invest in assets that will give them some form of interest in the future, while women are programmed to like invest on beauty assets, physical assets, assets that, so a woman would rather buy a Coach bag, a woman will buy a Louis Vuitton bag because they want to show people that, like, I got it like that, like my man got it like that, that's why I have this, while a lot of times they are not actually doing any actual investments. Because I mean, the bag, you can sell this bag in like maybe the next 5 or 10 years as a vintage item, but it's still not an asset like how men invest in assets. So maybe what these sprinkle feminists are doing should rather be, they should stop the sprinkle feminism of, like, when you need to take money from a man because it's reparations for how society treats us women, and rather teach these women who are not classed, because I'm just putting us in the class in the class brackets. So they should start teaching these women who are not classed and who do not have some of the facilities we have been able to have access to, how to empower themselves financially, instead of teaching them ways to depend on a man. How
Yeah.
about you teach them how to gain skills? Yes, how to gain skills in order to start something. And if they can't start something because of the kind of relationship they are in, then you teach them how to save money, just like you mentioned, how to save money from the little allowance that their husband gives them. I think there's a more positive way of looking at things than just, pushing women to be dependent on men.
I remember this Reddit story that I saw. I don't know if I've told you about it, but essentially this woman, she was living with this man. They didn't get married, but she was living with this man for decades, and they have 3 4 children together. The oldest is like in their 20s. So he had a senior position in his company, and they were making quite a bit of money. So she was living this cushioned life, but she was staying at home. She didn't have a job because he told her to quit her job and to take care of the children at home. Again, they didn't get married. So after a while, when it was time for him to retire, he sort of changed, and long story short, basically he became unfulfilled, and then they had a fight, and he kicked her out of the house. And she ended up with nothing. She could not get anything. He wouldn't pay her child support or anything like that. And he forbade her children to help her, and she ended up having no house, having no job, because she was out of the workforce for so many decades that it was so hard for her to just find a job, right? She didn't have any skills anymore because her skills are out of date. So she ended up having to work as a housekeeper in order to just put a roof above her head, because she spent so many decades building a family, this like white picket fence dream for this man, only for him to discard her like that, and she ended up being left with nothing. So I would say that be smart about it. If you are in a position where you are, for example, you're married, or you are even in a partnership, and you're doing all this work, you're doing all this household chores or child rearing or whatever, always try to find a way to, I would say, legally bind yourself to whatever, right? For example, if you are buying a house, if you're buying a house together, because it is together, because you are contributing to the household, do not let him only put his name on the title, because that house is also yours, because you also contribute to the household, to him having that lifestyle, to him being able to go to work without worrying about whether he will have food at home. So whatever work you do, whatever it is, try to demand your equal share in it. Don't be like, oh, he'll always love me. I don't need my name on the household deed. I don't need my name in the house title. Because the moment that he leaves you, you will end up with nothing. So be smart about it.
Yeah, you'll be such a clown.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so on to the next question. I feel like we've literally spent 27 minutes, 20 minutes, over 20 minutes on the first one. So we are going to breeze the rest. So yeah, the conversation, as we were talking about, so in my group, as we were talking about the ways in which modern romantic relationships have become like sex work, even though some people don't want to agree with it. So we kind of talked about some of the similarities in these situations. So, and I mean, sex workers, obviously they are providing sex service, and then people pay for it. So in this situation, I'm just only going to equate it to sex workers who are women who cater to men, cis men. So these sex workers take money from these men and provide certain services. Sometimes it can be physical, sometimes it's not. In modern love relationships, we are seeing a lot of people doing the same thing. So the last time I actually saw a video of it was a skit basically. So she was doing how different women dress up or act when they want their husbands to give them money. And all of the different women she did came from very sexual angles. So the first woman, who is bougie, dressed up in a lingerie, a very sexy lingerie, and was like, performing sexuality and femininity, and the husband ended up giving her the money. And even the older woman who did not wear lingerie still came and was shaking their bum and twerking in front of the man, just so. And like, this is literally what OnlyFans creators are doing. That is what they are doing. But these women will still sit and think that, oh, I'm the respectable one. Like, they'll sit on their high horses and still feel like, yeah, I'm better than a sex worker because I don't have a social media account. So to you, what are some similarities, or what are some things that feels like pipeline from modern relationship into sex work?
I know that those women who frowned upon sex work and they do all those things, they would say that the difference between them and sex workers are that they are monogamous is that they would say that it's because they are pleasing only one man instead of a parade of men. I do see the similarities. I mean, on the one hand, you are viewing sex as a very transactional way, and it also borderlines manipulation, right? Because when it comes to sex work, it's upfront that you're not manipulating the other person. It's very upfront that, okay, I'm
Exactly.
selling the service to you, you are paying it to me. It's a business transaction. No one expects anything more than that. However, in a relationship, you expect emotions, right? So you are playing into your partner's emotion by not just providing sex, but also by using their affection, their feelings towards you in order to get what you want. That is the textbook definition of manipulation. So I feel like it's even more of a red flag in a way. It's a little bit more sinister because you are in a relationship with someone and yet you view your relationship as one, transactional, and two, you are manipulating your partner as well. Um, I I mean, the moment that you say things like, okay, if you buy me this Gucci bag, then I will give you a blowjob. It sounds very icky to me because it does sound a little bit like a sugar babe dynamic, you know what I mean? Except it's a
Yeah.
monogamous sugar babe.
Yeah. Which is sex work. I mean, people don't want to think of being looking for a sugar daddy as a form of sex work. But it is
Mm-hmm.
sex work. You are looking for an older man to finance your life, finance your education, to finance your lifestyle. But somewhere, somehow, you still think that you are not into sex work, that you are better than the OnlyFans creator. I'm like, are you okay?
It's also a layer of misogyny because they think that patriarchy as well, because they think that a lot of these women are married, so they think that these piece of paper will
Mm.
legalize and will put them a step
And the
above
ring.
other. Yeah, a ring and a random piece of paper will put them above other women who do the
Yeah.
same thing just because they're like, oh, the law or patriarchy recognizes that I belong to this man. So it's very silly to me.
Yeah, and I've had instances where I've heard someone say that, you know, their friend told them, "Oh, so you're having sex with this man for free," just because she was in a bind,
Hmm.
and so she went to ask her friend that, "Oh, can you help me with this?" And the friend asked her, "Oh, but I thought you were sleeping with this person, mind you. This is just a casual sex situation." And so she says, "So why are you sleeping with him if you are not going to ask him for money? Why are you having sex with him for free?" I'm like, what the fuck is having sex with him for free? Is she a sex worker?
Yeah.
If a sex worker has relations with someone, gives provides a service to someone and does not take money, that is when you can say that they are doing it for free. But how is a person who is not a sex worker, who just wants to have sex, having sex for free? Like,
And also, if you view it like that, if you say that, oh, you're having sex for free, you are viewing, you are saying that you do not take anything from the sex. You are saying that it's something that you only do. So sex
mm,
is, we've talked about this, but sex is supposed to be reciprocal, right? You're supposed to enjoy the sex as well. That's what
yes,
you're taking away from it. But if you're like, oh, am I supposed to be
yeah.
doing this for free? Then are you saying that you don't even enjoy the sex? That it's something, it's a chore that you're doing?
And babe, you're just commodifying
Mm-hmm.
yourself. So I'm sorry, but you
And
are a sex worker.
there's nothing wrong with that.
Even though you don't want. Exactly. I think what annoys me about it is that a lot of the people who are coming from this angle will literally look down and talk down on sex
Hmm.
workers. They will do that. But then they see themselves as, they put themselves on a pedestal because, oh well, he's my man, he's only my man. I'm sorry, he's probably doing the same thing for the five other girls, but that's fine. I do not want to give you trust issues, but like he's a man, babe. He's a
He's a
man.
man.
But whatever, yeah, whatever rocks your boat, I guess. But you are definitely not better than a sex worker. Like, I'm sorry, but this also does not mean that all heterosexual relationships are sex work. That's not what we are saying. But especially if you watch our podcast, if you listen to us, we are trying to take you on a journey. You need to, unpack some of the decisions you make. You need to assess some of the decisions you make. Is this a feminist choice? Like, what is your rationale behind this? Why are you doing these things? How is this thing serving you? Are you really choosing this? Because we've said it so many times, your choices do not
In
exist in a
vacuum.
vacuum. It never will. Yes, it never will. So you need to unpack these things. This is not. I mean, it's okay to be a sex worker. Just
Gail,
do
I have a
it. Okay,
question.
okay. That's nothing. And
So
yeah,
what if it's something like, okay, if you clean the entire house today, I'll give you a blowjob. What's that dynamic for you? It's not from personal experience, by the way.
wait. So it's me. So it's me
Yeah.
telling a
Yeah.
man that if he cleans the
Yeah, if you clean the
house.
entire house, I'll give you a blowjob.
I mean, for me, I would not mind being a sex work if I didn't have body image issues. I probably would be. So I'm going to put that under sex work, and I will gladly be a sex worker for that. If he's going to, because I hate
Yeah, me
cleaning.
too.
So if he's going to clean the house and he does it well, yeah, I would give him that blowjob. It's fine. Like, it's okay. Just clean it well, and yeah, you can fuck my face.
Yeah, just like clean the bathroom, please.
Yeah, that's it. It's actually hot. Like, I know it's a bare minimum because a man cleaning you should not even have to, give an incentive. But most men just don't clean. So unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, you can also view it as like a 50-50 household chore. Like, I give you the blowjob, you do all the household work.
So on to the next question, which I think that we've already touched on a bit, whether people are cosplaying sex work while judging sex workers. I do think that because sex workers are framed as, less respectable, they are framed as immoral, they are framed as people who are desperate enough to do this, like, to do this kind of work. I mean, people don't even see sex work as work. Uh, Different conversation. I think what really plays a part in how people think they are better just because they are not actually calling themselves sex workers is respectability politics.
I do,
Do you agree?
I do.
Because
Go on, sorry.
no, you go. I just asked you a question. I'm done. So you go.
So I see a lot of hate toward sex workers from Cambodian women, especially in these groups for women, especially for mothers and housewives. They would say things like, "Oh, sex workers are like public toilets because they are used by multiple men," or they would say like, why would a guy want to share something, want to put their dick in a hole that's been used by many men. So they really dehumanize sex workers by using this kind of language, or say that, oh, it's I saw this one woman saying that my husband wouldn't even use the same spoon as someone else, and yet he would use the same woman as other men. So why is he like that? Why is he so disgusting? Viewing, you know, every time that I see a woman being compared to a public toilet, I am reminded of the rape of Nanking, the atrocity that the Japanese did to people in Nanjing back in World War II, where they raped women, where the Japanese soldiers were raping women, were killing women and calling them public toilets because they viewed these women as objects that they can just dump their fucking cum into. So it's very atrocious. I physically recoil whenever someone compares a woman like that, especially from other women. So I think it's vitriol how some of these women speak about sex workers when at the end of the day, so two things can be true at the same time. One, I don't think that sex work is empowerment. It's not. Sex work can be degrading. Sex work can be tough. Sex work can be a violation of human rights because it involves human trafficking, right? If we say that sex work is great and fun and empowerment, then we are deluding ourselves into forgetting developing countries where girls are forced into sex work and to service men for as little
Yeah.
as $5 or even less. So we need to keep that in mind that sex work is not empowerment. And two, sex work is still work, and sex workers need to be respected. Sex workers need dignity and respect from us because at the end of the day, they are also, just like us, making a living under this capitalistic hellscape. At the end of the day, they just want to put food on the table too. We are no better than them, okay? I would say that if you
Yeah.
want to bash anyone, if you want to hate anyone, hate the fucking billionaires, okay? Do not hate people who are struggling to put food on the table. Look, it's not fun. I would like to say that for most people, it's not fun to undress and to sleep with a bunch of men that you don't even like, a bunch of men that can be terrible, that can be smelly, that can be terrible at sex, that can be awful, awful men. It's not always fun. They don't do it just because it's funsies, but they do it to make a living. And the least that we can do is find respect for them. However, a lot of women, they feel that they can basically project they would get a seat at the table, they would get picked. And I think ultimately women who cosplay as sex work and yet they are frowning upon or they are judging sex workers, ultimately they belong in the same category as pygmies.
Yeah.
Because
They
be,
they
because
do.
if you think about
I
it, they think
agree.
that they're different because they've been picked, right?
By one
Yeah,
man.
by one man.
By a man. By a man. Why are you happy that a man has chosen you, babe? You are just a glorified maid.
And baby making machine.
I'm sorry. Right, right. That's true. And so I've seen a couple of videos from sex workers, and I've spoken to a sex worker. I've I've never heard any of them say that sex work is empowerment for them.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this rhetoric is pushed by anti-sex work people as a gotcha moment, because that is literally where they build all their arguments against sex work from. That, but nobody comes out to say that sex work is empowering. Literally, the only empowerment that comes out of sex work is the financial empowerment. Literally,
Mm-hmm.
that's literally all they get from it. But no sex worker is out here preaching to you people that sex work is empowering. And so,
I would say that
yeah,
it the narrative is also pushed by white, rich, privileged only fan models, people like Bonnie Blue. So
yeah,
they're very, very out of touch
yeah,
because they are white, they're rich, and they're privileged, and they are able to work on a platform that doesn't that able to work under a platform and not under a pimp. So ultimately, white women, they are white before they are women.
yeah, yeah. That's also draws my attention to the fact that now a lot of times when people are talking about sex work, they are only fixated on what they can see.
Yeah.
They are only fixated on like OnlyFans. They are only fixated on their Telegram accounts. They are only
Mm-hmm.
fixated on their X accounts, but they never actually think of the 13, 14-year-old girls who are standing by the roadside because they need to make a certain amount of
Mm-hmm.
money which is going to be taken from them once they get back to wherever it is they are sleeping. People never think of that. That's why it's so, like, sex work is bad, sex work is this and that. It's sex work is not just the glorified ones that you see on your phones when you pick up your phones or when you turn on your TV. That is not all that sex work is about. So,
I want
yeah.
to
Anyway,
add a little bit as well. The narrative that I see being pushed more and more, at least with Cambodian women, is that a lot of wives, a lot of housewives, and a lot of wives, they would judge sex workers. They would even spew vitriol hatred towards sex workers by blaming them for the cause of their husbands cheating. They would say that, oh, my husband would never cheat had these girls not been everywhere on Telegram or on social media promoting their services. And I'm like, girl, your husband is a piece of shit who would cheat on you no matter what. Do not blame sex workers for doing the work and then say that, oh, had they not been so easy, my husband would have never cheated on me. He's a man. Come on. He would have cheated on you with like a hole on the wall if he wanted to. If a man didn't want to cheat on you, he would
yes.
not cheat on you, even if they keep saying they would keep spewing shit like, oh, if food is in front of if you place a plate of food in front of a hungry man, then he would eat it. Well, your husband has no self-control. I mean, what the fuck? Why are you blaming other women for your husband's shortcoming? Come on.
Mm, pick me
Yeah,
is in.
exactly.
Pick me politics. So yeah, anyway, to wrap this episode up, what are some ways in which you can navigate relationships without feeding into this very problematic and heteronormative way of being in a relationship? And I again would like to preface that the goal is not for you to be like, this strict um person about your choices or anything, but it's to question the things you do, it's to question the things you expect, it's to question your entitlement, it's to be more conscious, it's to um be more aware of whether things are happening mutually in the relationship you have.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about going beyond gender roles. It's about thinking, oh, how does care work in my relationship? Is it reciprocal? Do I always only expect something from my man but never give anything back? Those are questions you need to ask yourself as someone on a feminist journey, as someone who feels that, like, you've arrived, that your feminism has gotten to the point where it needs to get, so you're not doing any more decentering, any more deconstruction. You still need to ask yourself these questions. Kat, what are your last words?
I do completely agree with you about questioning your choices, questioning why you are making all these decisions. And I think that communication is very important in a relationship. Do not manipulate your partner. Come on, don't do that. Always communicate with your partner if you feel like you're being treated unfairly or you're being taken advantage of, or maybe your partner should also be able to communicate with you, have a clear and open communication with you when they feel like something is not right in the relationship. And I would say that the the choices that you make, you also need to question where it's coming from, right? So for example, if you are in a relationship where one of you needs to take care of your kids, if you have kids, and your partner, who is a man, makes more money than you, I think it makes sense. If your partner makes a lot more money than you, it makes sense for you to pick the person making the more money and the person making the less money to take care of the children temporarily, right? Up until you are able to leave your child to daycare or whatever, and then you go find your own job or whatever arrangement that works in your relationship. Or, for example, we also need to take into account people with disabilities, right? Because sometimes, for example, you are in a relationship and suddenly you have a disability and you are unable to work anymore and you rely on your partner. We're not saying that you are suddenly being a trad wife or you are suddenly demeaning yourself or being entitled or being financially dependent on your partner, and it's bad because you have a disability. That's just how it is. And unfortunately, for many countries in the world, there's not enough social security support for you as a person with disabilities. So every relationship, every dynamic is different. But I agree with you, Gail, on how you should always question where your choices are coming from and constantly be aware of it, and also be open to listen to other people, other feminists' perspective as well, because sometimes there are also things, perspectives that I never thought about until I hear other people speak about it. Don't just take it with a grain of salt, but also look into it and make your own decision and talk to other feminists, other women about it as well.
Yeah. Thank you once again for joining us for this episode. And we hope, as always, it was very insightful for you. And you got some practical things that you can use in your day to day life. So, yeah, again, there's nothing wrong with being a sex worker. If you want to be one, just fucking own it. You are no better if you expect that a man gives you a chunk of money before you have sex with them. You are not automatically a better or more respectable person than a sex worker if you have financial expectations in exchange for sexual favors. Like, you are literally the same, and there's nothing wrong with being a sex worker. Okay, just fucking own it and leave actual sex workers alone. Please stop bashing them. So anyway, thank you for joining us once again, and you can find us on all social media platforms at Unholy Feminists, and we will catch you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.